Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, we're going to be covering a big update to Missa Pandaria when it comes to Arena and PvP, as well as looking at some serious concerns about the health of Arena from the Community Council on the World of Warcraft forums. And I honestly kind of forgot that it existed, but I think it was a very important post to cover. Now, the first thing of business is the Missa Pandaria Beta Arena update from Zyrene here, which Minpoike had built and structured a forum post outlining the issues that were going to be foreseen in Missa Pandaria. And Zyrene has been communicating on Twitter back and forth with the community and discussing about what should be done in order to enhance the experience of Missa Pandaria from its current trajectory at the moment, and the communication has been excellent. In this update, you can tell he's been going back and forth on what should dampening look like, and they're going to let us decide in your own matches, game to game, blind as to what the other team selects. So the longest that a match is going to be able to go is 20 minutes up from 15. Dampening will default start at 5 minutes in all brackets. Now, this is the setting that they had for tournaments in AWC in Missa Pandaria when teams got to BlizzCon. They actually changed dampening in the tournament realm from regionals to the BlizzCon finals. And it did benefit certain compositions over others, but maybe that will change with add-ons and, skill increase over time, and especially how quick everyone is at optimizing everything. But dampening starting later than this is going to be very slow, and everyone was complaining about it. So this is baseline. It's going to be starting at 5 minutes. Every arena starting area now will have a bloodbath orb, which they have a picture of here that you're going to be able to interact with. And it requires at least 2 players to channel to activate. Activating the Bloodbath Orb will cast a vote, which will start dampening faster. So this is obviously, some teams are going to benefit more than others at starting dampening faster. So if both teams decide that they don't really want a long game with the other team, let's say they're both Warlock teams, they benefit from faster dampening, they can both agree to it to have a faster game rather than it going into deep dampening. Or if you're a Healer DPS, maybe possibly as well, into Healer DPS, you can vote to start it at a different timer, because obviously the benefits to dampening depend on your class and your composition, so you may not want it to start faster. So you're actually going to be able to find the little middle ground with this. If no teams activate their Bloodbath Orb when the gates open, an announcement will describe the match as being slower, and dampening will start at 5 minutes and will start at 0. If one team activates the orb and the other does not, when the gates open, it will describe the match as having a warm-up period, and dampening will start at 3 minutes at 0%. So you get 2 minutes faster dampening. If both teams activate it, when the gates open, it will be described as a bloodbath, and dampening will start immediately. So this is trying to find a middle ground, a happy middle place where all playstyles and compositions will have some sort of say in this, right? Whether you're double DPS and 2s, or if you're maybe playing a slower paced composition around dots and 3s, to try and help teams decide this. Now, everyone is going to always vote for whatever is the best advantage to their team, right? So take that into account. So it's probably likely going to always be, it just starts at 3 minutes. I don't know what case people, maybe in 2v2 with Healer DPS mirrors, they'll vote to have it start right away or something like that with both sides. But this also will take into consideration 3v3. Bloodbath orbs require 2 seconds of channeling from at least 2 players. The range is very small, so you can't accidentally misclick it. And this will allow players to vote for the type of game they want. The thing is they're not voting for what type of game they want. They're voting for what dampening gives them an advantage. No one's voting for the game they want. They're voting for an advantage. So I think this is decent, but it'll likely almost mean that most matches will be 3 minutes on dampening. But the point is that there's a lot of communication about PvP. They're implementing an entirely new format that has assets in the game to interact with in Missa Pandaria Classic. Like, this is a crazy level of communication. I love how transparent he's been. I really don't like the people who have been trying to twist words that he said about things in these past couple of days. Like, guys, don't ruin this. Like, there's no point in ruining this. Like, don't take things out of context. Don't read into things that you're reading into. Like, this guy is being a goat right now for the PvP community in Classic. I wish that we had this level of communication for retail, right? Like, this is wild that this is even happening like this, because I honestly thought Missa Pandaria was going to launch the way that it was, and it's making me a lot more excited about it to know that they are addressing these things, because these were problems in the original one that they had to address with different dampening timers in tournaments as opposed to the live servers. But that leads us to our retail discussion. which is a community post here by the Kindevoker, and from the WoW Community Council. And this was formed to generate a casual player's perspective to the game and communicate and relay feedback in the hopes for change moving into the future. So the fact that we have someone like Zyrene communicating right now on the Classic team, interacting directly with the community, although he's dealing with a little bit of stuff that you guys need to stop because you're going to ruin a good thing, and maybe that's why the retail team doesn't want to bother or something at the moment as far as like public communication. But let's just cover this. Hello, Blizzard team and fellow PvP players. I'm writing this post to highlight some glaring issues currently affecting the health and integrity of World of Warcraft's arena system, especially in the War Within Season 2. As someone who is deeply passionate about PvP, I want this to serve as constructive feedback with the hope of motivating the developers to take a closer look at the state of arenas and consider much needed changes. Deflation. We are nearing 4 months into the Season 2, and deflation in the 3v3 bracket remains unaddressed. The rating compression is so extreme that many skilled players are struggling to obtain Gladiator or other competitive rewards, not due to a lack of performance, but because the system isn't rewarding them appropriately. And I covered this in my top 4 major issues with PvP, which I'll link after this, but just to quickly get the gist of it is that MMR is decided by the number of players in a given season, so if there's less players participating in a less popular season, it's harder to get rating. And that inconsistency is really bad. It's really bad because it's like a self-eating snake. It just, a season with less players that's already less popular becomes increasingly less popular because no one has any hope of going after the rewards. So if you watch that video, you'll know that I talk about that the reward system needs to be restructured. They need to hide the rating system, hide the numbers specifically. It'll take a lot of the weird mental things out of the game where you go 4-2 and don't gain rating. You can remove that by just not showing your rating and just showing what rank you're at. You know, if you're a challenger or if you're a rival, and just hiding the number like they do in League of Legends to remove a lot of that negative psychology that comes along with that and the inconsistencies between seasons, because it's been so many years of this. We've seen this so many times. I really hope that this is something that they're going to look at. I'm glad that he's bringing it up, but he's kind of bringing it up in a way that I'm worried that they'll just like increase MMR or something, and it's like this manual update is just so it's just way better to just revamp it, I think, for the ground up. It's concerning that a race to world first, one of the most difficult achievements in the game, gets completed within 1 to 2 weeks, yet top arena achievements can take months to reach due to this artificially limited rating distribution. It's also a little bit of time gating. Blizzard limits the amount of MMR you can get so that if you didn't just like skyrocket to 4K in the first week and have nothing to do. It's definitely a little bit of time gating, and we've seen how much time gating they do. And a little bit of that is kind of necessary because a lot of people just stop after they get their rewards. Like, you can let me know in the comments down below, but if you're someone who like gets your elite set and you get out and you stop, like that's likely why it's like that. A previous blue post mentioned surgical adjustments to PvP balance and health would be made as necessary. However, the lack of updates and communication is deafening, and many of us feel left in the dark. Now, I think there are a couple of classes that do way too big of one-shot damage, which is the issue, right? Like aim shot, execute. What are some other ones here? Why am I forgetting this? I've had a long day here. There's a couple of them, right? There's a handful of abilities that hit like a little bit on the extreme end and you get one shot that could be brought down. But for the most part, almost every spec is viable. So like that PvP balance is great. It would be nice to get a little bit of the one shots down, a little bit of the annoying PvP mechanics like hollowed ground. I don't know why that's getting removed next patch and not just right now. Yeah, but I don't think it's like as bad, you know. I think it's more deafening that this issue is not being talked about, and maybe it will because they said they had a rewards revamp, but I thought that was going to be happening when they talked about 11.2, but it still hasn't happened. Maybe it will. Maybe if we draw attention to this, that it will. That's all we can hope for, right? I just want Zyrene. I just want a Zyrene. Can we get a Zyrene? Incentives in other brackets. Solo Shovel is extremely popular, yet it lacks meaningful long-term incentives. Imagine the potential of a Gladiator equivalent mount, perhaps with a recolor, exclusive transmogs, or healer-specific rewards were added. DPS queues are notoriously long, and rewarding healers more meaningfully could help reduce queue times and improve the overall experience for everyone. They should just add a renown track to PvP every season like they did for Mythic Plus. I think maybe not Mythic Plus, but for rating. A renown track, and if you're a healer, as you progress down the renown track based on the number of games you've played, you unlock like 50% more conquest gains on your account. So it's like if you play this many games of a healer, your whole account gets this massive benefit. So you can play a healer, try and get to that number so that you can farm up conquest for your alts and play the game with more accessibility, other rewards, right? There's a whole bunch of options they could throw into that, but just copy paste the renown system, structure it for PvP, and give a little bit of a incentive towards healers on that track, maybe more so than DPS, to get more people to try and play it. This is the best you could hope for. I talk about this issue as well in my video with the top 4 issues, where it's like People just don't want to play healer. You can only reward them so much. Maybe we need a different mode that either has more DPS per healer ratio or no healers at all, and other ways for characters to be able to heal themselves. Gladiator mount design. The Gladiator mount from the season 1 feels disconnected from the theme. I agree. This is just a really lame mount, especially when we come off Dragonflight and we see this mount. It's like, oh my god, it's like night and day. We go from like the best mount in the game to the worst. It's like it's such a big drop, right? So I was really hoping that they would see the feedback we've been giving for the final season and switch that mount. I don't know. Maybe it's too late at this point, because in other expansions they did switch it. I think it was in Legion. Everybody in the PP community complained about the mount they presented, and I think it was Halinka at the time. He actually was like, "Oh yeah, I agree. We agree. We're gonna switch it to dragons. We'll make it. It wasn't gonna be dragon mounts or something, but I think it was gonna be infernals, and I actually think it was PvEers complained that they wanted the infernals, and then so they put the infernals in the raid and we got dragons, but we were happy because the dragons looked cool. We wanted flying mounts. So I wonder if it's not switching this time around because the PvEers don't want our bat. They don't want our bat, so maybe that's why it's not switching. But obviously, yeah, earning Gladiator is one of the most difficult achievements, so having that be representative of that is great. Would be important. Kind of regardless of how ugly the mount is, it still serves as that marker. It's just that it would be nice if it was cool as well. And participation from a lot of players who would play Arena right now is down because the Gladiator mounts doesn't seem worth it to them. Gearing improvements and suggestions. There have been good steps removing the conquest cap, making alt gearing more accessible, and the ability to send gear is fantastic. I agree with the gearing up. I think the gearing up has found a nice middle ground where you start the season, slowly gear your character up to satisfy that RPG progression, and then at a certain point it just unlocks, uncaps, you go free willy and you can play whatever you want, any combination. I think that's a nice middle ground to satisfy both audiences who like gearing up and then versus people who want to play competitively, and then by the people who want to play competitively want to play towards the end of the season for their rewards. So you get like a nice of both worlds with the system. But there are a couple of criticisms here. Items like the prized heraldries, so these are very important because these are for crafted gear. These cost conquest, and you can't get them from the box. So some classes, like a demon hunter, right, you want full mastery, but none of the conquest gear has mastery. It would be nice if the PP vendor just had every combination of stats. That would be nice. So you didn't have to craft a full set of gear on some specs because it's just random, right? You wanted to roll a spec because it looks cool. Guess what? You're spending way more gold on your gear now because you picked that randomly. It would be nice if the PP vendor just had every stat. Or if you could send the heraldries count-wide. The prize jeweler settings is a little weird to me because you can just buy them with bloodstones. You can just buy the bloodstones, mail the bloodstones, then buy the jeweler setting. So I don't know about that one. But the heraldries definitely would definitely be an improvement because I have someone who's been making the alts. But again, I'm the minority. Not a lot of people are probably doing what I'm doing. A lot of people probably don't even finish one character. Solo shuffle point system. The solo shuffle point system remains one of the most frustrating aspects. Losing MMR going 3 and 3, no rating after 4 and 2. This is why I think the number should just be invisible. So you don't need to understand why that's happening. You're just in challenger rank. There's a certain threshold of how many games you need to play through. Maybe you could show a bar or something to show that progression instead of a number, but the number is just really screwing with people's psychology as it is. I also think adding safety nets, so when you get to a certain rank you can't fall below to the next rank. Adding some safety nets would be really good to remove rating anxiety for people and to save them from situations where they might queue up and get really unlucky or just have a bad night, lose 500 rating in a night. I think it's incredibly demotivating. So adding some safety nets that prevents players from falling down would go a long way. Trinket set tuning, this is probably the one point that I don't agree with. Finally, the current trinket set bonus is creating a heavy burst meta where players die in under a second. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's just a select few individual abilities are overtuned, and that damage needs to be redistributed to other areas of their class. So aim shot damage into arcane shot, execute damage into rend damage or deep wounds, for example. If you nerf the stats on the trinket, it's just these one-shot abilities will still one-shot you, and then everything else is painfully slow. So I don't think that that's the right way to deal with it. It's definitely a problem, but I don't think it's the right way to deal with it. In the past, the development team reduced the primary stat, and again, I don't think this is the right move for this specific instance. Sometimes it is when it's like every ability in the game is too fast. This makes sense. But when it's like 3 or 4 abilities that are the main culprits for the dying immediately, elemental shamans as well, Forgot about that one earlier. Those are ones that you probably want to focus in on. Final thoughts. PvP players love this game and we want to see it thrive. Communication between developers and players feels like it's at an all-time low. Even small updates, roadmap insights, or developer check-ins would go a long way in restoring trust and engagement. Yeah, it just feels like we don't get, there's not a lot of interviews. I don't know if it's like you have to apply for an interview for this type of stuff. It's like we got, what was it? I saw Nagura laughing at it because like 12 seconds of the video for 11.2 was about PvP, and then that was it. And it was like, you know, just an interview. Like before they got Jelly Beans on the launch of the War Within, and he did an interview with developers, like getting a little bit of representation from the PvP community. It just kind of feels like just being left out to dry, you know, like maybe the population is low, but it's like leaving it out to dry is going to let it shrivel up, and like you need to nurture it a little bit, right? And I think that abandoning WoW PvP with how unique of a mode it is, you can't get this experience in any other game, would be a massive mistake in the long term. And it's to assume that PvE will always remain thriving. And I've described it as, you know, buckets, right? Like PvE and PvP. PvP had a smaller amount of water in the bucket to begin with, but both the buckets are draining. So if that PvP bucket hits empty, eventually the PvE bucket's going to hit empty too, in the long run. So nurturing them to try and reduce the leaks and try and somehow refill water needs to be seriously considered, because I think it's a dangerous game. And also, even with as small of it seems our population is compared to PvE, it's still generating a lot of revenue relative to a lot of other games. So I think it definitely deserves the respect. And I think they've done good with the class changes so far throughout. There have been quality of life improvements throughout these 2 seasons that I'm sure we're all forgetting. We only focus on the problems, right? We never appreciate the things in hindsight that have changed and improved. So I'm really just hoping for more communication somehow, whether even if it's from like a faceless account, you know, like the Warcraft devs account, just a little bit more communication like Zyrene is doing. Hopefully Zyrene is not getting too much grief for this, because oh my god, dude, he doesn't deserve it. We're not asking for perfection, we're asking for effort, responsiveness, and transparency. Thank you for reading a concerned and dedicated PvPer. So we got the community council on our side. I didn't know we would ever have the community council on our side, but yeah, I'm just really hoping for more communication, because I'm just looking at this MOP updates and I'm just like, man, I'm jealous. I'm jealous, bro. But that's it for the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed the update and the discussion. I'll have a link to my top 4 issues with the game that will dive way better into detail with what I think could be done to improve the game here in just a moment. But thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.